Hello, this is Political Forum for Wednesday, February 13th, 2013. We welcome today our guest, Representative Christian Mitchell. Thank you for appearing on Political Forum.
Thanks for having me.
I'm your host for today, Monica Torres, a CAN TV board member. During the next 25 minutes, we will try to get to as many as your calls and comments. So if you have any questions for Representative Mitchell, please call us at 312-738-1060. Political Forum is a show brought to you as a community service by CAN TV. Representative Mitchell, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, Monica, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks to CAN TV for putting on this forum. I've seen it several times, and I know quite a few people who watch it, so I'm grateful for the great public service that you provide in bringing political leaders to the people that we serve. So first of all, thank you. So my name is Christian Mitchell. I'm the state representative in the 26th District. The 26th District stretches roughly from Streeterville on the north side of Chicago all the way down to South Chicago, running along the lake around to 92nd and Exchange. So it's a wonderful, very, very diverse district that is very representative of the diversity we have here in the city of Chicago. I started my career as a community organizer working on common sense gun legislation, creating jobs for people in communities many of which are in this district, as well as trying to upgrade transportation systems for people trying to get to and from work. Worked for Tony Preckwinkle, our Cook County Board President, and also worked for Will Burns, our Alderman in the 4th Ward, before leaving Tony's senior staff to run for this office. So it's the honor of my life to have this chance to serve, and very, very excited to work for all of you and the people of the 26th District. So thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming.
Of course.
So you were recently elected. Tell us how it's going.
It's going great. It's obviously very challenging. We have a state budget that's in very dire straits, and that makes it difficult to get done some of the things that I'd like to see happen for the people of the 26th District to make us a more equitable community. But it's going well. We've got the office all set up now. I've got a great district director, who's in from 10 to 3, 5 days a week and providing great constituent service. I've had my first couple session days in Springfield and gotten some of the freshman hazing out of the way, which is good. I've got my committee assignments, which are energy, agriculture, state government administration, healthcare availability and access, which will allow me to address many issues that people in this district care about. So it's going very, very well, and I'm excited for the work to continue. Great.
And can you tell us what priorities you have for legislation?
Yeah, so there's a couple. First of all, the overarching thing is the budget. It prevents us in its current state from doing a lot of things that we would like to. We had a state government income tax increase a couple years ago that brought in $6 million in new revenue, or $6 billion, I should say, that we really, really needed. But a lot of that's being eaten up by the fact that we have a very severe pension crisis, which is a difficult issue because you've got workers who did their jobs. They paid in to the system every single day. They went to work, and they did what they were supposed to do. And we have political leadership in Springfield that for the past 40, 50, 60 years has not done their job, which leaves us in a difficult situation because the workers have done their fair share. But unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation where we have to make changes. The reason I mention that is because it's growing at such a rate that even though we have new revenue coming in, it's crowding out a lot of our spending to the point where we've cut education by $600 million over the past couple of years. So the budget is my overarching priority. When I worked for Tony at the county, we implemented a system called performance management where effectively we do performance-based budgeting and say, if you're doing workforce development or whatever your particular role is, you have to prove up to why your spending makes sense, and you have to make sure that you're performing up to speed. So the budget is my overarching priority because it affects the other things I'd like to do. Early childhood education is a huge priority of mine. President Obama mentioned it in his speech last night, universal pre-K and assisting states with that. That's something that I would like to see us do in this state because if you have a kid reading to learn by the time they're in 3rd grade, they've got a much better chance at succeeding regardless of other circumstances. I'd like to see us reform our workforce development program so that we are investing in industries where jobs are currently being created in growth industries like biotech and green tech and healthcare. And I'd like to see us do more with after-school programs and making sure that we give our kids a reasonable and safe alternative. And then finally, one piece of legislation that I'm working on would ask our pension systems to divest from anybody who's invested in firearms or ammunition, because what happens is every gun starts off legally, but as we've seen, we have a rampage of gun violence in our communities, and the people who fund folks who advocate against common sense gun laws are funded by people who manufacture firearms and ammunition, who are taking our public dollars currently and using those to advance a political agenda that hurts our kids. So those are some of my priorities for my first term.
Great. Sounds really good.
Thank you.
I believe we have a caller on the line.
Okay.
Caller, what is your question?
Yes, good evening. You just mentioned gun control, Representative. Yeah, and that's being talked about nationally and locally. So tell us more about your stance and what do you hope to help accomplish downstate?
Thank you. I appreciate it. So a couple things. So as many folks may know, I want to say it was in December. It was it was late in 2012. Our appellate court passed a decision saying that we have to pass a concealed carry law in Illinois. We're the only state that currently doesn't have one. And so along with that, there's been a renewed sense on top of what happened with Padilla Pendleton, on top of what happened with Newtown, a renewed sense of needing to make sure that if we're going to implement a law like that that's going to put more weapons directly on our streets, that we pass some laws that make sense. So I'm in support of common sense gun legislation, and that's a couple things. I started, as I said, my career as a community organizer. I worked out in Riverdale, which is south of Chicago, and one of the issues is that there are a couple gun shops out that way where people go out, they load up their trunk full of guns because they can legally buy guns, and they come back to the city of Chicago and they sell them. They're called straw purchasers. So I would like to see laws that crack down on those folks, making sure there are universal background checks, making sure that if you're going to transfer a gun to somebody else, that you have to title guns the way you title cars, that you are limiting people to one gun per month, which, by the way, is still 12 guns. So if you budget correctly, you can still get all the guns you'd like. But some of those common sense reforms that are going to make sure that when folks have access to guns and they buy those guns legally, that we're not promoting the secondary markets that allow criminals to get access to those guns. So I would hope that as we potentially have to pass a law that is going to put more guns in the hands of people on the street, that we will also pass reforms to keep our streets safer.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Caller, what is your question?
Hi, Representative. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I had a question about the minimum wage and teen unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I heard in the state address that the governor would like Illinois to go to a $10 minimum wage. The president said last night he'd like for the nation to adopt a $9 minimum wage.
Yeah.
But one of the critiques that's been coming from businesses, at least here in Illinois, is that raising the minimum wage makes it more difficult to employ teenagers. In fact, I believe that Illinois has its highest teen unemployment rate in 42 years right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious to know if you are for raising of the minimum wage and how you think that can be reconciled with the sort of very high teen unemployment that we're seeing right now.
Thanks for your question. So I would say a couple of things on that. So first of all, when you talk about teen unemployment, one of the big issues that we've had in the state in the past couple of years is that city and government summer jobs programs, which were prolific during the 70s, 80s, even 90s and early 2000s, have been utterly decimated. So I would like to see, as we start to pare down our budget costs, implement more common sense kind of budgetary controls and reforms, that we also invest in a very robust summer jobs program. Because we have a problem right now where you've got kids graduating from the Chicago public schools having never held a job and not having that experience and not having a chance to earn that wage for their families. So that's one answer. I do support a minimum wage increase, and here's why. When you look at large-scale national business groups like the National Federation of Independent Businesses, for example, you would think from listening to folks on the other side of the aisle or some folks in Washington that the number one issue that they would have would be things like wage requirements in terms of minimum wage or or government tax burdens. But in fact, you see two things. You see concern about ability for them to pay for health care, which some of which would be alleviated by Obamacare and the expansion of Medicaid for low-income folks. But the second thing, and in some cases it's moved back and forth over the past couple of years, the first issue that businesses have is one of demand and the ability of consumers to actually afford to purchase their products. And so the minimum wage would allow a minimum wage increase would put more disposable income into the hands of people who are most likely to spend it, which is poor and middle class folks who are going to buy goods, buy services in a way that's going to boost our economy. Because the main struggle that we have both in this state but also nationally is with consumer demand. So I think that increasing the purchasing power of the middle class is an extremely important step toward making that happen.
Okay, thank you for that caller.
Thank you.
So, Representative Mitchell, are there any committees that you are currently on?
Yeah, so I'm on 4 committees. I'm on State Government Administration, which effectively deals with state agencies if they want to make a change in either policy or mission. They have to go through that committee. The Agriculture and Conservation Committee, which I understand is kind of stereotypically a downstate committee, but because Chicago's a national hub, our trade and commerce relies a lot on what folks do downstate with agriculture, and not to mention, of course, food. I'm also on healthcare availability and access, which is especially important because we have 4 hospitals in the district and additional federally qualified health centers and other clinics. And then finally, I'm on energy, which is actually one that I'm very, very excited about. And the reason is because, as I mentioned in kind of the workforce development section of my earlier comment, green tech is a growing industry, and energy is a growing industry. We heard a lot from the president last night about natural gas. There's a big conversation about hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, here in the state, in addition to issues that I've worked on for a long time, like weatherization to lower energy costs for low-income families, for seniors, that will also create thousands of jobs in the Chicagoland area, as well as investments in wind and solar and other energies. And what's so exciting about that for me is that we have an opportunity as we move forward with this green economy to create real jobs for people in the state of Illinois. I'm obviously especially concerned about the 26th district, but a chance to create jobs in growth industries, not some sort of egghead save the penguins type of proposition, but really lowering our energy costs, becoming more competitive as a region. We have that opportunity, so I'm very excited about the Energy Committee and seeing what opportunities we could bring to the 26th district.
Thank you, caller, for that question. You're watching Political Forum. It's a community service brought to you by CAN TV. If you have any questions for Representative Mitchell, please call us at 312-738-1060. And I'm your host for today, Monica Torres Linares, a CAN TV board member. Is there anything else that you would like to speak of?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm extremely excited about the opportunity that we have in front of us. There's been a lot of outcry on gun violence, which is part of the reason why I mentioned it in my earlier comments. And the reason I talked about the budget is primarily because there are investments that we need to make in order to take that sense of hopelessness out of our communities. Now, the mayor announced yesterday some reforms on minimum standards for folks who are caught with guns who don't have FOID cards and aren't using them legally. I think that's an important step in cracking down on criminals who are loose on our streets. But I also think that, the youth unemployment that was mentioned by a caller earlier is a huge, huge problem. I talked to kids when I was doing community organizing. They would say, look, Christian, I don't want to be out here, slinging dope or selling drugs. But I don't see a viable alternative. I had a couple moments where folks would come up to pastors I was talking to on the stoop and say, Pastor, I'd like to sweep the church or mop the floors and anything I can do to hold employment because I've got a young son at home or a young daughter at home and I don't want to be doing this. So as we think about how we reinvent ourselves as a state, as we think about what we do about our budget going forward, we've got to think about how we invest in job creation for young people, how we invest in after-school programs to keep kids off the streets, how we invest in child care for low-income and middle-class mothers who are single and on their own and need to hold a job. So those are some of the things that we need to prioritize as a state. That is the serious implication of our budget. I know folks hear a lot on TV or in the newspaper about the state budget and the pension issues, and it seems kind of far away, but it's really not, because it directly affects the type of services that we can offer. So I request the help of folks who are watching this and putting pressure not only on me but on fellow legislators to really work this year to get something done so we can start investing in the type of state that we want to create.
Great. I believe we have another call on the line. Caller, what's your question?
Yes, I wanted to ask the representative about fracking. I know they're being on the Energy Committee. I'm sure that's an issue. And I understand it's very controversial. There are lots of people who have strong feelings one way or the other. I'd appreciate it if you'd say a little more. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks for your question. So I'm doing a deep dive on this topic as we speak. So I don't want to portray myself as an expert. I'm hoping to get there in the very, very near future. But I'll say a couple of things. I think part of that concern comes from standards on conservation and on water quality, and making sure that we do this in a way that's environmentally responsible. I'm a big fan of the Sierra Club and ELPC and other groups that do work on this, so it's something that I'm extremely concerned about and very, very conscious of. I do think that as we talk about domestic sources of energy, if we can find a way to do this safely, and as I understand there are negotiations going on right now around this topic, that it is a chance to revive industry downstate, that it's a chance to create new industries right here in Cook County, and it's a very exciting opportunity. However, as you mentioned with your concern, it has to be done in a way that's environmentally responsible. We have to consider how we use the tax dollars and tax revenue that would be coming in to invest in things that are going to create a better climate for business and a better climate for folks to get educated and work in our state. So those are the things that I'm concerned about as it comes to fracking, and questions that I'll have for people who come before the Energy Committee on that topic.
Okay, great. Thank you, caller, for that call. We have another caller on the line. Caller, what is your question?
Hi, I just wanted to know the status of marriage equality in the state of Illinois. I know the Senate was possibly looking at a bill, and I wanted to know if that's something you foresee happening, passing through the state.
Absolutely. Thanks for your question. So that did pass out of the Senate Executive Committee. I can't handicap it in the House. I don't know, where the vote count is on that right now. Obviously, it's something that's come up over the past couple of months. I can tell you that it's something that I'm supportive of, that I'm a strong yay on, because I believe it's a civil rights issue. We are talking about civil marriage. We're not talking about forcing anybody of a particular religious conviction to marry people who they don't think should be married. We are talking about a civil right. A lot of folks say, well, we've got civil unions already. I think in this country we've tried the separate but equal thing, and it didn't work out so well. So I'm in strong support of it. I will be encouraging my colleagues to support it. And I think it's got a good shot, because I think people realize now is the time. I think they've seen on the national stage with the presidential election, they had an opportunity to vote yay or nay on this issue, and the majority of people did. There's been polling that says it has majority support not only across the state, but here in the city in African American and Latino and other minority communities. So I think it's got a very good shot. I think that advocates and people who are concerned about this issue need to make sure that they keep the heat on, keep the pressure up, and make sure that my colleagues in Springfield understand exactly how important this is.
Thank you, caller, for that question. You're watching Political Forum. It's a community service brought to you by CAN TV. Our guest for today is Representative Mitchell. If you have any questions, please call us at 312-738-1060. I'm your host for today, Monica Torres Linares, a CAN TV board member. We have another question from a caller.
Great.
Do you think that the state of Illinois will give more tax breaks to people who only earn minimum wage?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. We, a couple years ago, expanded the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is a tax credit for working people in this state. I think it's a great move. As I said, one of the reasons why a minimum wage increase makes a lot of sense to me is it puts more money back in the pockets of people who would spend it. We have a very regressive tax system here in the state of Illinois. It is a flat tax, which means that everybody across the board pays the same tax rate. It means the tax burden on low-income and moderate income working families is much higher than it is on people who are at the upper echelon. So I think insofar as we are looking at giving additional tax breaks, it makes sense to do them for low and moderate income people and for small businesses. I think there's a real question, given the state that our budget's in, if we can afford to do additional tax breaks to anyone at all. I think it's a real question.
Thank you, caller, for that question. Representative Mitchell, you're newly elected.
Yep.
How has your life changed?
Wow, that's a great question. So I think it's very different than being an alderman. I think that everyone kind of recognizes their alderman on the street, knows who they are, and there's been a little bit of that. People coming up to you at the gym or in the grocery store and kind of asking you questions about what's happening in the state. I think the biggest thing for me is that I've worked in government before, working for Tony. I've worked on the political side of things. But it's very different when it's your name on the door, and when people are looking to you to really take action that's going to be impactful and meaningful and make their lives better. And it's a grave responsibility. As I said at the top of the segment, it's the honor of my life, and it's really been the thing that's kept me up at night. Is saying, I know I'm one of 118 voices in the House of Representatives, but each and every day have I done everything I can to make sure that the people in my district have gotten the best representation they can, and that I've worked the most I can to move the ball forward on that particular day. I think just that sense of gravity, that weight is something that's very new, but it's something that I'm very excited about, and I'm honored that the people of this district have trusted it in me.
Okay, good luck. If anybody has any questions or wants to contact Representative Mitchell, his district office is located at 449 East 35th Street, Chicago. His phone number is 773-924-1755, and his email is mitchelldistrict26 at att.net. So if you have any questions for Representative Mitchell, you have his contact information. We have another question from a caller. Do you have any new business developments in your district?
So it's a great question. So the district is it's a very long, skinny district, travels along the lakefront. So we've got a couple of big things happening kind of on the edges, and it's probably some things that are coming up that haven't been announced yet. But the University of Chicago, for example, just created a new care center at their hospital, which is going to employ local people, which use a substantial percentage of minority contractors, and is really going to do a lot on the kind of preventative care that is so desperately needed in this district, and specifically in the African American community. And then just a little bit kind of near the edge in the middle, we've got some really great new development on 53rd Street in Hyde Park. There's a new Akira store. There's a new hotel going up. There's really doing a lot to kind of revitalize that area. And then hopefully we're going to have some exciting things coming to Bronzeville fairly soon. So I look forward to announcing that the next time I'm here.
Great. Is there any final comments you would like to make? We just have a couple minutes left.
Sure. I really just want to say thank you to all of you for watching. Thank you to you for hosting. Thank you to CAN TV for putting this on. I'm honored to be here and would love to come back anytime you guys are willing to have me. If there are any questions, my district office information was just given. Please call. Please stop by. It's 449 East 35th Street. I'm there fairly often, so if there's something I can answer in person or something you'd like a more in-depth explanation on, please feel free to come by. I'm honored to serve and very excited to meet all of you. So thank you.
Representative Mitchell, thank you for appearing on Political Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you, callers, for your question. Political Forum is a community service brought to you by CAN TV. Please join us next Wednesday, for another session of Political Forum. Have a good evening.
Thank you.